Okay, I just thought of this story. Tom Fleming's story, of course. So one day it was very sunny out. It was June 1995. It was a very sunny day. And I can't remember what was going on in my life. I was having a tough day. And it was physical. I was having a lot of physical problems. I was trying to overcome asthma, and I was having foot problems, and it was tough. And I was still in physical therapy for my back. I was in physical therapy for years to get my right leg back to normal. So in walks a very famous man into Tom's store with his little boy. His boy is about 5.5. And he's a typical little 5.5-year-old boy with daddy, and he's kind of, you know, roughhousing kind of a kid, you know. But, you know, I could relate to that. I was a roughhousing kind of a kid, and I was a girl. This is a boy. Okay. So he walks in, and he sits down on the bench that Tom had, that wooden bench, if anybody remembers it. It was as you walked into the store, and it was on Bloomfield Avenue, as you walked into Tom Fleming's running room store, and you walked past the wooden counter, which was kind of high up, you know. It always felt so tall to me. You go past that, and then you had your, like, things that hung, like not the Spenco, there was something else he had there. It was how he merchandised, I can't remember. And you go past that little thing, that stand. And right after that, I think there was shorts, or no, there was coat, there was jackets, like this. And then you had the bench, okay? So this man walks in, and Tom and I were talking. He walks in, and Tom's like, "Oh, Steve, how you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. And Tom says, "You know who this is?" And I go, "No." And I felt like a turkey once I found out, especially now. He goes, "Oh, well, this is Steve Adubato, and he's on, you know, on TV." And I'm like, I think that's what he said to me. I was like, "This is Steve Adubato." And I knew the name, but yeah, you blank out and you go, "Okay, I know that name." I feel like a jerk, you know? And he goes to measure his feet, and I'm acting like I know who it is. So then the most uncomfortable part is when Tom has to go down and get shoes for Steve Adubato and his little 5-year-old son in there. And I'm thinking, well, let me occupy the kid, you know, because this man really has to buy a pair of shoes, and it looks like he wants to talk to Tom about something, yada, yada, yada. So Tom goes down to get the shoes, and, you know, and we're kind of like talking, but I really don't know what to say. I mean, like, I'm still blanking out, like, who is this guy? And Tom comes back up. He's got the shoes. And I go, "Oh, let me, you know, I'll play with the kid over here." And I can't remember what I was doing, but, you know, I was occupying the child. And this way, Steve and Tom had time. And I guess he spent maybe a half an hour or so, you know, hanging out with him and everything. So he leaves. And, of course, I don't know who he is. But fast forward, I find out later, and then I feel like a real turkey. So a lot of different people came into Tom Fleming's running room. Vinny Carnevale, if anybody remembers Vinny Carnevale. "I want to buy 10,000 shoes." He'd come in, and he was hardcore running, and I think he died, I'm going to guess, like at 90-something years old. Maybe he was 90 or 95, I'm not sure. And he had a tough life. He was a good guy, Vinny Carnevale. And I remember when he ran, I think it was 250 races in 5 years, between 70 and 75 years old. He achieved it right before Labor Day, 1991. And he'd always walk in at times and go, "I went 10,000 shoes." He was a character. And then one day, Tom had Dr. Rob Gilbert from Montclair State University. And he was also nationally and internationally known as a, like, motivational kind of guy and a sports psychologist or anything. He brought him in, and I didn't know who he was. And Tom said, "Oh, why don't you sit down and talk to Dr. Rob Gilbert?" This is back, it was like March 1992. So I'm sitting in the back office room there with Dr. Gilbert, and we're chatting, and time is going by, and this guy's asking me a lot of questions. Now, they didn't know my back was broken at the time. We kept wondering why I was limping. I'd been to doctor after doctor, and nobody could figure this out. But they took the x-rays wrong, and they never did an MRI. That's a whole nother ball of wax. They kind of blew me off because I was tiny. How could a runner be injured? You know, this stuff. But I had tried to explain to the doctors, "Listen, I got, you know, hurt really bad, and this is how it happened, blah, 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 blah." So Gilbert got done, And he said, now I want you to do me a favor. I said, oh, yeah. I said, I just found out who you are. I said, what do you want me to do? He goes, would you mind coming to a class that I teach and being like a special guest star, because I think you're like a mental toughness expert. I said, oh, so you've analyzed me. And he's like, and Tom looks at me because Tom is guilty. Okay, because he brings him in, especially for me. I don't know this because he makes a phone call and the guy walks in. And I said, okay. I said, so, you know, you want me to come in and talk about what? He goes, mental toughness. I said, really? He goes, yeah. So he said, call me this number, blah, 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 yada, yada, and let's get you in there. I'd like to get you in there in a few weeks, a couple weeks. I'm like, ah, okay, no problem. So there was all different types of people that walked in. There was guys that worked for the state, high-end Justice Department guys, and, you know, everybody walked in. Very interesting people. And Tom would take in, and I talked about this before, he'd taken, like, kids from Denmark, and then there was this English guy that came in who was the race director for the London Marathon. I don't know if he still is, but he was back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, that's for sure. And had I not, something happened, I got to remember what it was. Well, we were going to do Desert Storm, but I had actually had an infection and a doctor mishandled it, and I ended up having to have surgery when I was supposed to go to the London Marathon. That was a bummer. But I was going to stay with this guy, and he was a happy-go-lucky guy. He was a nice guy. So that's, he knew, like, gazillions of people. I mean, like, tons of people. So those, I was very well entertained when I walked into Tom's, and I did it specifically because I was going through a tough time. And my husband would say, you should just go down and hang out at Tom's, and, you know, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, that's it for this one. Have a great day.